All right, welcome everyone to November's first hub meeting. Under Portland City Code and state law, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and relevant city staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and the city has made it available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The public will have an opportunity to provide public comments during the comment portion of the agenda and can also provide written testimony to the board by emailing utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. Pub believes and acts upon anti-racist principles in our meeting spaces and interactions with Pub. While every person has the right to share their personal perspective, we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that is targeted towards people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. And this means stepping up as a community when there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth. And the way that we do that is we are active and deliberate with our words. We speak up and we speak out. Each of us is empowered to maintain the culture of the Portland Utility Board, and we will remain focused on the impacted individual or population, condemning the conduct, not the person.
Hi, my name's Amy Archer-Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. Please state your name before you speak, and if appropriate, who you're addressing. The chat box is only viewable by the co-hosts, the two pub staff. So please limit any chats to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function is primarily used by the board. We may lower your hand once you begin speaking just to maintain the flow of conversation. During public comment periods, the public can raise their hand and you'll be called on when appropriate. If connecting by phone, you may need to press *9 to raise your hand. Videos may be turned on when speaking. If desired, it is not required. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and if connecting by phone, you may need to press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Public comment is taken during the comment period early in the meeting. You can sign up through chat with us or raise your hand during that period. It's also available just prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. I'll pass it back to you, Robin.
So pub members, we do have to break from convention this week after hearing the unfortunate news that one of our own, Bob Sallinger, has actually passed away. And so we just wanted to acknowledge quite a great loss to the board, but also the community. And I, for one, was definitely shocked to hear, and I definitely hope I'm not the one breaking it to you. But it was quite lovely hearing all of the positive messages and the impacts that Bob has had just in the local community as well as the statewide environmental movement. And so that was really reassuring. And I just wanted to also speak on his presence within the board. I always love that he came loaded with facts. He was always willing to have discourse with anyone, but he absolutely knew where he stood and who he stood up for. And so that's something that I always admired about him. And so I'm deeply personally saddened by the loss. And I know that we're all going to feel his absence going forward. And so I just wanted to share the floor with the members of Pub. If any of you wanted to share just how you're navigating this loss or just share any kind words about Bob.
Hi, this is Lauren Rosencrantz, pub member. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know Bob well other than working with him here, and I was shocked and deeply saddened just from the few months of knowing him. He was definitely a fierce advocate, but always amicable. And I feel like we could all strive to be a little bit more like Bob. So honored to have known him in the brief amount of time that I did. And also there's like a bunch of articles out there. If you just Google his name, there's a ton of people writing about him and his legacy, which is really interesting to read. I believe he was involved in a film that I've been meaning to watch, Once a Braided River. It's about the Willamette So I just wanted to put that out there. I've never seen it, but it's supposed to be really cool. So yeah, honored to have known him. Thanks for giving us the time to honor his memory.
Thank you, Lauren. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, I had the pleasure and privilege of having been in Bob's presence and worked with him on a whole variety of issues over many, many years, because my career has been in the environmental nonprofit based in Portland, and Bob was an institution. I mean, it's like for the longest time, I didn't even I theoretically knew the other people worked at what was then known as the Audubon Society of Portland, but like Bob was Audubon Society, right? The name was synonymous. And the man worked tirelessly. I mean, the work was his life, honestly, and he literally did it until the very end. And he has left the world different than how he found it, and has just left a really big hole. So he's going to be greatly missed. And I know that I personally am really not looking forward to all the times I'm going to think, oh, I'm going to ask Bob, and just he's not going to be there. So, but yeah, he was absolutely an institution in the state of Oregon for environmental causes, and will just be deeply, deeply missed, and his legacy will not be forgotten.
Thank you for that, Julia. And just as a reminder, I'm positive that Bob was instrumental in the formation of the board that we're all on today. So just wanted to have that as a reminder. Go ahead, Kyle.
Thank you. It's very much in spirit and alignment with Lauren's comments, only knowing Bob for the past few months, but just the clarity of his thought and observations, and also the depth of his technical knowledge was just on such clear display every time he spoke. So just deep appreciation for Bob, and it was really shocking and so saddening just in this brief point of interaction relative to the span of our lives that he's left, and he's also left behind his family. So I just want to wish truly the strongest to those who remain. Also, as we continue to move forward as a board, I know that I was so grateful for his acumen and his just historical knowledge and context, and also the types of observations he would make. So just understanding how, for those who have that technical layer of understanding, how they can also kind of relay the energy of observation that Bob would bring to the calls. So thank you for the time, and thank you, Bob, thank you.
Kyle, go ahead, Alexis.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to add than what has already been said. But first of all, thank you for creating this space for us to remember and honor Bob. And I think we were on the board. We joined at the same time, and right from the onset it was my first interactions with Bob, although I knew his name, given his legacy here within Portland and within Oregon. And as others have said, so impressed by his thoughtfulness, by his ability to engage in debate in like a kind way, and to offer feedback and perspective was just such so important on this work. And I really do think I hope that we can all kind of carry his example forward in this work. And Amy, if others know if there's anything that we can do to honor his memory, I would be happy to contribute to anything with family, or if a fund is set up or anything along those lines. So yeah, thank you very much, Bob, for his service and for all that the work that he has done. And those are some big shoes for us to fill moving forward.
To Alexis, it looks like Priya actually has something to say. Go ahead, Priya.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks for the opportunity. And I speak for the Public Works Service area when I share these comments. When I first got to know about Bob, he was often referred to as the face of conservation in Portland, in Oregon, as well as due to his tireless work and commitment to environmental issues in our area. And while I only had the privilege of working with him for a brief time, his passion for environment was immediately evident. and I could see his vision and leadership has helped shaped many projects and efforts across the public works service area and the city of Portland as a whole. And I was deeply struck by his extraordinary depth and breadth of issues he championed so passionately. He was committed to making Portland a healthier, more resilient place for both people and the environment. And he leaves an enormous and lasting legacy that will resonate for generations of Portlanders and Oregonians. I know his passing is a profound loss for many of us, and my heart goes out to his family, especially his wife, Elizabeth, and the 3 children. And I know for all of his colleagues and friends who've had the privilege of collaborating with him over the years, you have my deepest condolences. And as we reflect on his life and work, I encourage all of us to honor his memory by continuing the important work he dedicated his life to, and with a passion for the environment, for wildlife, and for the future of Portland. Thank you very much.
Priya, looks like Julia had something more to say.
I know I already spoke, but I wanted to build on what Kyle said just a little bit more. I remember I was on the committee that helped bring Bob onto the commission, and I want to speak a little bit to he had all this breadth of technical knowledge and did a lot of this technical work for his day job. And so it was like part of what enabled him to bring really high level technical understanding to like the work that we were doing. And I think that, you know, like, I agree, like, let's all try to step up to that plate. But I think it demonstrates the value of like, we want to be a commission that represents the public and that it has people with shared values on it. But I think that we shouldn't be afraid about like, you know, nominating people onto this board like Bob, who, like, it is their life's work to do this work, and it is their job to read the fine print and do all that. And I relied on Bob a lot in this commission to help me understand issues between meetings. And I really meant it when it feels like on multiple levels, but in this commission particularly, he leaves a hole, a gap that is going to be hard for us to fill. And I agree, we should all try to step up and fill it and be more like Bob, but just appreciating that's something that we can and should be, you know, looking for and honoring in this space, is that kind of the kind of energy Bob brought to it. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to honor him and kind of have this moment to just acknowledge this profound and unexpected loss. So thank you.
Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you, Robin, Amy, for making this space, and everything everyone has said, of course, yes, and I was not on the selection committee with Julia when Bob applied to be on the board, but I do anyway remember when Bob first joined, and I have to say I was humbled and kind of a little bit intimidated that someone, you know, quite frankly, of Bob's stature in the conservation community, I guess, chose to take on yet one more thing and chose to give his time and expertise to, you know, a committee that isn't, you know, quite as, I don't know. I mean, it's not, you know, advising the governor and, you know, the state land board and the kinds of things that Bob had, the credibility and the and technical and legal training to be able to do. And he chose to take some of that extraordinary talent and passion and share it with the little old utility board. And like I said, that kind of, you know, I think it made me kind of up my game and think about my commitment to the board and the values to which we espouse. And that's a good thing. I mean, something like someone like Bob who, you know, just so passionately lives their values that they kind of bring other people up with them. Wow. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for the time, Robin.
Lorraine, go ahead.
Thank you. I was looking for the raise hand. Um, it was a shock to me when I found out about it. I knew of Bob being Audubon, and then he joined the pub, and he brought a lot of knowledge to the pub, and I appreciated that. You know, it's sad to know that it's only when someone passes away, I don't know why my ring is going off, that you know so much about them, so much more about them. That's a sad thing. That we have to wait on, you know, until, you know, acknowledging someone at their death. But it's amazing all the things that he's done, and I understand. I was talking with someone, and apparently Bob started like at 19, if I'm quoting the person correctly. This is a lifetime of work, you know. At 19, I don't know if I had the wherewithal to be bothered about what he has created over those years. So I just want to acknowledge that commitment to the community. He basically gave his all. And he showed his passion in his own way, as others show their passion in other ways. And I appreciated him for always be willing to listen and adapt. So kudos to Bob, kudos to his family for allowing us to have that time with him. It is appreciated. Thank you.
All right. So with that, just want to thank all of you for sharing in this moment. Definitely some collective grief among us, and let's just continue to do the tireless advocacy that Bob has absolutely paved the way for in many ways. And like I said, he was part of the reason why the pub even became a board. So let's continue to do that work that he invested himself into. So with that, let's get to the beginning of the meeting. All right, so today we are going to hopefully be finalizing the annual report, as well as we'll be having the Bureau of Environmental Services just give us an update on the rate study implementation. And then if we have enough time, we've got one water that we'd like to re-engage with. Are there any disclosures of communication? All
Since
right,
I'm
I'm
not
not.
hearing any disclosures, Robin, I just wanted to take the opportunity, because I don't have a separate slide for it, to maybe use the time to briefly introduce the positive addition to our staffing of the pub. Today we have Jonna Lynn Bransford joining us, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank her for joining the team and just have her introduce herself to the board members. You'll be interacting with us both a lot in the coming months, but just want to take time for you to actually meet her virtually in person.
Thank you. I'm Jonalyn Bransford. I use she, her pronouns, and I come to the city of Portland from Portland State University, where I worked for about 10 years. I'm very excited to be here with you all and supporting you in the great work that you do. Just want to keep lines of communication open, and really looking forward to the next months as we work together and make good choices for the city of Portland, or good recommendations for the city of Portland.
Thank you, Jonna Lynn, and just want to welcome you on behalf of Pub. We're excited to have you as part of the team, and we're definitely excited to have 2 staff members again to assist us in the work that we do. So thank you. All right, so this is the public comment portion. Amy, has anyone submitted like written testimony beforehand?
Yes, so I just wanted to mention 2 things. One is during the prior conversation, the member of the public who's in the room did just want to share their personal appreciation for Bob and his work. Carol, who probably has known him longer than many of us more directly, just because she too has been engaged in the pub's work for a long time. So she just wanted to share that he was an asset for Portland and all of Oregon, and it just acknowledged the great loss, and that he had a wonderful life, and it leaves behind a big hole. I did also want to mention, pub members, I'll be sending out a written public comment that was received after the read ahead materials went out. So I'll incorporate it into the notes, and you'll be receiving it by email following the meeting. It is from a resident of Portland who is working single mom and sharing concerns about the increase in the utility bill. They monitor their water usage and are comparing current bill to the same quarter a year ago, and concerned that the costs have gone up even though usage has gone down. So they also submitted their comment to Water Bureau as well. So I imagine their staff will be following up, but I will respond on behalf of the board and let them know that you have received the comment. And then if there's any additional follow-up, we can do that at a future meeting. And I guess I should have concluded by saying I had nobody else signed up to testify today. So if there is anybody in the room, feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda.
All right, so it looks like we've got the second meeting in September and the second meeting in October's minutes that we need to approve. So we'll just take a minute or so. Raise your hand if you think that anything needs to be edited for them before we approve them. Not seeing any hand raises. Let's go ahead and approve both of these meeting minutes as they are. All right, so Pub, we've been working on the annual report for a couple of months now, and just per city code, we provide an annual report to council summarizing the accomplishments of the past year and try to give a snapshot of what our plans are for the upcoming year. We were unable to meet the September deadline, but we absolutely want to submit this. And so hopefully we'll take about 15 minutes today just to review any changes that have been added or edited by current pub members. And then, yeah, we're hoping to vote and finalize it. And that way we can get it to City Hall as soon as possible.
So I am just pulling up the current working version of the document in case we want to go through it. So folks can just let me know if there is a section where you want to focus, or if we just want to note changes since the last time around. I have left highlighted in the current version, so the version that you received prior to this meeting. I don't have any changes since that version that you received. And the changes that are highlighted are the ones that were incorporated since the prior meeting. And I've just added some comments, as I have here, as to why the changes were added based on recommendations from pub members. And so there's just a few of those throughout the document. I'm not sure if we want to go through any of them, or if folks have specific areas that they want to focus on. So please raise your hand and let me know if there's a particular area you want to jump to. Barring that, I will just continue to scroll down. There has been some conversation about the work plan. So that is after we get through the annual report and the summary of the main things that happened over the prior year. That's where the work plan pieces are. Lorraine, go ahead.
Thank you, Amy. Could you go back up to the top?
Of course.
It's regarding the creation of the pub.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm looking for something that is not there. If you could go down a bit to the next to the introduction. I don't know if I'm missing something, or I am under some misconception that the pub was formed because of some legality.
There was a legal case that brought about some of the Blue Ribbon Commission and part of what they evaluated and the recommendations that came out of that. So it wasn't, I suppose, a direct relationship, because there have been advisory bodies related to utilities, but the formation of the pub was to ensure adequate oversight by an independent body in response to some of the concerns that were raised.
And the reason why I may be stressing this point, and I think I don't know, I think I sent an email to you, but I just want to put it on the record, is this whole question of the new city structure that is going to be implemented January, and the unknown about where boards, committees, and all of those things will play. So basically, there's been conversations about, if there's already conversation about the backs going away, based on what function they play or do not play and all of that. So the reason why I'm really looking to tie this back and to something solid, that when that conversation about pub happens, that it is noted, because I worked at the city and things get forgotten. Things tend to get forgotten about what has been done before, what has been whatever, and we've recreated the wheel so many times. And I just wanted it, that institutional knowledge to be there so that it says clearly that the formation of the pub came out of recommendations from a blue ribbon committee, blah, 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 blah. Because I want it to be a strong statement that this is not a by the way committee. This is not, oh, let's have a committee to look at this. So let's have a committee to look at that. Or let's have back meetings and you all could do whatever you want with your back. You could use it to rubber stamp. You could use it to guide. You could use it to drive the conversation or whatever. And that is why I think I'm being very particular about it, in anticipation of the new city structure in January, where we may have to have this conversation about why the pub should be kept or why the pub is not being kept and all of that. Because I think if my memory serves me right, and I don't trust my memory for the last year, but I think we've had this conversation about, hey, can someone come to the pub and say, what is the intentions for the pub? And I don't know if that conversation happened because, as I told you, over the last year, I have been convalescing. So I just want to put that on the record. That's a long-winded way to say, hey, this pub was created for a valid reason, and here is why. It wasn't somebody woke up one morning and say, oh, let's have an advisory board.
Okay, so I tentatively added in the reference to the Blue Ribbon Commission, and actually I was going to just make a note to myself to also add in the link to the recommendations. And I did also have a note from Carol, who was around when it was originally forming, just confirming that there had been prior budget committees, but the blue ribbon is what made the shift to pub. And it was also following the defeated ballot measure about changing the way that the utilities would have been done separate from the city. And so once that was defeated, then the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Commission that then formed the oversight body was an important component. So I will add that piece in as well, the links to those documents. Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Chipman, thank you. Addressing Lorraine. I don't know if it's totally germane. I was just looking through the initial onboarding guide that was sent over I went through it a couple months ago, and there was the Portland Water Bureau and Bureau of Environmental Service legal lesson, which I think also covers some of this. So it's, I guess, just flagging in the moment that was my entry point for the historical context of the emergence of the pub. So I think it's super helpful to root it in the result of legality, but also it was a helpful video that I watched, Bureau of Environmental Services and Portland Water Bureau legal lesson. So just for the record to state.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. And going back to Lorraine, your comment about the conversations that are happening, I am still engaging with the point people at the city, and at the most recent advisory board meeting, there was conversation about it as well. And there's not really the central conversation that's happening. They're really dealing independently with each of the boards and commissions and reviewing code. So we haven't started that process yet, but there will be conversations that we'll bring to the board, because the board anytime we are reviewing code or any potential changes to code, you're fully engaged in that and what you want to take to the city and to council for review and changes that will be some will be necessary just because of the change in structure, but we need to have those internal conversations with the full board as to what you're recommending that look like. Any other areas to discuss a bit more in depth or suggestions for modifications? Where are folks at with the current version of the document? Kyle, go ahead.
Thank you, Kyle Chipman. I have no recommendations for adjustments to the document, and I'm excited to see it submitted today. I have possible ways we can approach formatting, but it doesn't affect the content of the annual report or work plan.
Great, thank you. Anybody else with some suggestions or areas that you want us to look at? Or is there somebody who is ready to make a motion that we finalize, that staff incorporate the final edits and finalize the document for submission? Karen, go ahead.
Karen Williams, voting member, and I would make that motion that staff incorporate final edits and formatting changes, working with perhaps one volunteer or one or two volunteers for a final review. And after that review, to go ahead and submit the work plan and the final report to the council.
Sorry, I couldn't, the mute button moved temporarily. Now it's back. Kyle, go ahead.
Thank you. I think I'll just grab the floor for like a minute or two. It won't be super long, and it's some items I prepared back in September, but it just wasn't able to get shared. So I'm going to go ahead and share my. Oh, sorry.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
Because a motion's been made, if we have a second and can move through that process first, that would be great.
This is Alexis Wright, voting member, and I second the motion.
All right. Any final discussion or public comment?
This is Robin. The only thing that I want, I currently support, I believe, everything that we have written. I just wanted clarification in, I think it's like page 6 or something. We bullet point a few of the topics that we really want to focus on. It's under it's page 6 under fiscal year values and work plan frames. I wanted to figure out when we're discussing assistance to low-income residents that are not direct customers, if single family residences are ever considered indirect customers. I wasn't sure if it was a yes or a no. The only reason I wanted to bring attention to that is because I felt that it was important not to specifically just say renters in that second bulletin there, but to specifically say multifamily residence renters, because under limited understanding that I have, single family residences who are renters have the capacity to qualify for the financial aid, whereas multifamily residences don't, based on them being indirect customers. So I just wasn't sure if anyone here had the information if it was possible for a single family residence to be considered an indirect customer, or if that was specifically and uniquely for apartment renters.
Not hearing
Robin,
a
are you asking
response to.
staff?
I'm asking anyone that might know the answer to that, in all honesty, because that was the only.
If Anthony's on here, he can probably answer with more precision than I can, but yes, you can be an indirect customer as a renter of a single family home if the landlord is paying the bill.
Okay. Well then,
Anthony, hopefully I didn't misspeak on that, but
no, I actually, oddly enough, my internet cut out in a major way, and I only heard a little bit before Anthony would know, so I apologize.
So Anthony, I was just trying to gain clarification if single family residences could be considered non-direct customers, or
That
if
is
that
correct.
was unique. Okay, that is correct. Okay, well then, with that clarification, I'm okay with the original phrasing of just renters. And
can I add one thing? Residents with a TS, residences is the residence has to have an account, but it's paid by either the landlord or the property owner, or the person living there, the renter. So the resident. Anyway, renters works. You just I didn't hear. I couldn't hear if you said residences or residents. Just to avoid difficulty there. There's maybe say renters. You're right. Yeah.
All right. So with that clarification, I am in support of the motion at hand.
All right. Any final discussion? Public comment? Let's go through the roll then. Robin, you're first.
Robin Castro, voting member. I vote aye.
Karen Williams, voting member, aye.
Lauren Wilson, voting member, aye.
Alexis Ray, voting member, aye.
Kyle Chipman, voting member, aye.
Lauren Rosencrans, voting member, aye.
Julia DeGraw, voting member, I vote yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Let me get the slide back up.
And then Amy, do you need a volunteer to assist you just for the finalizations?
Yes, thank you. I forgot that was part of the motion. So yes, if there is anybody in the room, one or two people who are willing to do one final review after I've incorporated all those changes, hopefully I can make sure that any changes that are made, which will primarily be formatting to make it look clean, are clear, so that you can do that final review. All right, we don't need to take the volunteers in the meeting. I will put pressure on some of you outside of the meeting then, and I will find at least one person who will volunteer for that final review. Karen.
Amy, I'd be happy to do a final review. I was just holding back because I thought Kyle had said he had some formatting ideas and I didn't want to overstep, but I'm happy to take a final look for anything that looks amiss.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
And Kyle, your mention about the formatting, is that for this actual document, or is that more the longer term formatting and how we track the information?
That's correct, Amy. It's more just observations of how we can coordinate together. It's less about impacting the document, and then I'm fully good with how it's formatted right now. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so Robin, given our time, we are a little bit behind time, so we can either take a few minutes for Kyle to share his thing now, or we can jump to the BES stuff and then maybe come back to that at the end. What are you thinking?
Is Kyle able to kind of give that information on the back end, or do you prefer to have it in a public meeting?
I could do it in the back end. I could also blast through it and just, it's more like sharing visuals, but for the sake of our guests, I'm also happy to not take a public time.
Well, how about this? How about we'll connect Kyle outside the meeting, which we're going to do anyway. I will share the visuals that you have with other PEB members so that then the chair can identify the amount of time, if appropriate, on the next meeting to have that conversation so that we can, because I think there may be some elements that even if it's not in a full meeting, there may be a couple volunteers that we could do something, as a subcommittee type thing.
Yeah,
if
beautiful.
Appropriate.
I think that sounds
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Sounds great. All right, Robin, back to you then to introduce.
All right, so this will likely be the final topic of the day, and that is the BES rate study and implementation progress report. So Pub, today we've got a handful of staff from BES just to provide us a progress report on the rate study and any changes that have resulted from that study. And so I'm just going to go ahead and turn over the floor to Farshad if they are in the room. If not, it looks like we've got Sherry, Anthony, and Aaron that might be available.
Thanks, Robin. Farshad Aladadi, Business Services Group Manager here. And I am happy to have a team of dedicated folks that have brought this project to conclusion to give the Pub a final report out on our rate study and the implementation of the recommendations from that study. So we have a bit of content. I'm just going to dive right in for the sake of time. And I want to start for the sake of those of you that are new to the board who did not receive an earlier briefing on this, and many of you, it's been a while, so you may have forgotten a little bit of background on the rate study. So just to level set, a rate study is hopefully we're
trying to get it going.
Okay.
Oh, let me switch. Is that showing up for everybody correctly?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Great. So we can go to the next slide. Rate study is a broad term that covers financial evaluation processes where a utility, and in this case, we're talking about BES, reviews its rate structure to make sure that the cost for ratepayers is proportional to their impact and use of our system. Rate studies are routine, they're technical, and they're a best practice for all utilities to follow. They are meant to correct for cost imbalances and should be conducted regularly. A rate study is separate and distinct from the annual rate ordinance, which the Bureau presents to Council every year as part of our budget submittal. The last time we had an external rate study completed at the City of Portland for BES was 19 years ago. So this is long overdue. It is industry standard to have rate studies completed more or less every 5 years. Since our last rate study, BES has made significant shifts in our infrastructure investments, focusing on improving our ability to manage and treat large stormwater volumes. It's important to note that we were directed by Council in 2018 to conduct this rate study. I want to talk a little bit about the outcomes of this effort. First, we wanted to make sure that we were recovering all the costs proportionate to the demands of various customer classes that are placed on our system. We're considering the impacts on all Portlanders. We want this study to reflect the environmental services values. We wanted the recommendations to be administratively feasible to implement, to address and consider affordability concerns and remove barriers to assessing services and our various incentive programs. We began this process by hiring Giraldi and Rothstein Group, which is an expert firm that focuses on utility and infrastructure financing. They conducted a technical analysis and produced a rate study report back in 2018. You'll notice that the timeline of this overlapped with the COVID-19 pandemic. So it did take some additional time to get things sorted and move from the technical background analysis to conducting our community outreach. And in addition to the worldwide events, BES was also undergoing an organizational transition in mid-2020, and that restructuring did prolong the analysis. In 2023, we did a substantial amount of engagement to find out what the community thought about the suite of proposed changes that we were recommending. We met with hundreds of community members and conducted dozens of community presentations and one-on-one office hour meetings with key interested parties. After several bumps in the road, we went back to council with a set of recommendations late last year, and they approved the recommended changes in December of 2023. The process involved three major stages. The first is the technical analysis. That involved benchmarking an environmental scan. By environmental scan, we were looking at other utilities and other factors that were impacting our cost structure. And internally, we looked at technical analysis of how those costs were allocated across our customer groups. And those analyses resulted in a series of recommendations in a report. We then reached out to council and presented commissioner recommendations and conducted additional outreach in 2023. There was a lot of back and forth, and we did increase the number of public outreach opportunities at the direction of our commissioner and our director. And ultimately, that led to a council presentation in 2023, where we were seeking approval for recommendations. That approval was delayed in coming to allow for some additional conversations between stakeholders and the commissioner's office. But finally, we brought a set of recommendations that all of council could support. And the major difference between the initial and the approved recommendations was the removal of charging over water structures for the increase in stormwater rates. So with this background in mind, I want to turn things over to Anthony Martin. He is the BES Financial Planning Manager, to walk through the recommendations that were adopted by council in 2023. And after that, Aaron Abrams, BES's Public Involvement Program Manager, will give an overview of the community engagement process that supported this effort. And we'll finish up with Sherry Peterson, who is BES's Revenue Program Manager, and she will describe the implementation process and next steps. It'll be then kicked back to me to just make some closing remarks on lessons learned from this very long initiative. Anthony, take it away.
Thank you so much, Farshad. And now that we've discussed what a rate study is and why BES conducted it, we'll discuss what the rate study recommended. Next slide, please. With the underlying goal of aligning rates with the cost of service, we can really group our changes into 6 main recommendations. So first, we want to align with the cost of providing service by shifting costs to stormwater rates and away from sanitary rates. Second, update our stormwater billing methodology, which is how we charge individual customers, to better match the cost of providing service. Third is moving to a fairer system for billing single-family residential customers. Fourth is doing away with certain connection costs. Fifth, updating our system development charges, or SDCs, to better match the cost of providing service, similar to what we did with single-family residential billing. And finally, expanding and simplifying the Clean River Awards discount program. So the first recommendation, next slide, please. The first recommendation is to align rates with the cost of providing service. As Farshad noted, given the substantial investment in stormwater management over the last 19 years, BES needed to adjust the rates so that a larger proportion of the bill covered stormwater and a smaller portion covered sanitary rates. Now, as you can see by the graph there, it was a 4% shift. And while I understand that 4% may not seem like a lot, we are talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. So it does represent a large redistribution of costs among customers. Next slide, please. What does that alignment between rates and costs mean for our customers? At a high level, this means that customers with large amounts of stormwater billable area will see their rates go up more than customers who have larger portions of their bill coming from sanitary services. As you can see for these two example customers, a customer with a high amount of sanitary flow, like a medical center, will see an increase in their bill that roughly matches that annual rate of increase for single family customers, about 5.15%. Whereas customers with high amounts of stormwater billable area, the office campus on the right, will see a larger increase in their bill. As a reminder, Council did approve that 5.15% increase to the typical single-family bill, which can serve as a proxy for general rate revenue increases. Next slide, please. An additional element of this shift does mean that extra strength customers who are particularly heavy users of the sanitary system, so they're sanitary focused, will see similarly low increases. This is relevant for customers like breweries, restaurants, or industrial facilities that are part of our extra strength program. Next slide. And we aren't just changing the amount we charge customers, we're also updating the way that we charge them, particularly in stormwater. Next slide. As you know, previously, BES charged for stormwater based on an on-site and off-site stormwater charge. Both of those charges were based on impervious area, and the on-site charge was meant to capture direct impact to your system from that property, and the off-site charge was meant to cover the blanket costs that all properties are responsible for. The consultant found that this conception was unique to Portland and didn't achieve our goals. Really, at a high level, we are doing away with that on-site and off-site distinction. So that idea of how we cut costs and allocate it to customers is just not how we're doing that anymore. We're moving to a new system that charges for stormwater billable area. And just to be clear, stormwater billable area, or SBA, includes everything we would typically think of as impervious area. It also includes pervious pavers and eco roofs. So we already charged for those things, but they technically aren't impervious. So we aligned our stormwater billable area definition to what we do. Additionally, it does correct an issue that was identified by an administrative challenge by Vigor in 2018. Next slide, please. Along with stormwater billable area, we've added a new element to the stormwater charge, service units, and they're based on the number of dwelling units on a property. This graphic shows the example of the impact of this service unit charge. The old on-site, off-site system didn't capture population density in the bill very well. Service units, also equivalent service units, but you'll see it on your bill as service units, ensures that BES collects costs related to our population, such as right-of-way cleaning and permitting requirements from properties, aligning with that cost of providing service. And really what this service unit charge means is that denser multifamily customers will pay more, while less dense customers will pay slightly less. You can see here that the bill increases go up as the density goes up from right to left. Apologies for it being right to left in this one, but you can see that that multifamily apartment, let's say that's a very dense apartment in the Pearl, they're going to see a slightly higher increase to their monthly bill than the kind of two-story walk-up stick-built apartments that are more par for the course in outer areas of Portland that are on the left, that low density. The updated system, not quite yet, sorry. For properties without dwelling units, we measure service units by dividing the amount of billable area by the typical size of a single family dwelling. So that's one of the things your question is, well, how do we take those service units based on dwellings and allocate it to commercial customers? And what we do is we use a proxy for the size of a single family home, which is that 2,400 square feet of stormwater billable area. Stormwater billable area will still account for 80% of the stormwater costs that we collect as a bureau. The other 20% will be collected via those service units. Next slide. The next recommendation is to update the way we charge our residential customers, single family, to better reflect the cost of serving them. Next slide. Previously, all single family customers were charged one flat stormwater rate. This meant that large properties with large amounts of stormwater billable area were charged the same as small properties with smaller amounts. We are retiring this flat rate and creating 3 categories for single family residential customers: small, standard, and large. Under the new system, smaller homes will be billed less. They are billed less, and larger homes are billed more. So this is a big change for our largest group of customers, since about 140,000 of our 180,000 accounts are single-family residential properties. You can see here, we cut off the percentages, but that standard category is really the typical single family bill. So they're going to see that 5.15% increase, just about a 6% increase more than today. Whereas that small category is going to see a decrease because they have smaller billable areas. So they're going to pay less than they had been paying. Whereas on the other side, the large category is going to pay more than they had been paying, and they also have to pay that rate increase. About 60% of single-family residential customers fall into the standard category, 23% fall in the small category, and the remaining 17% are in the large category. The large category, about 25,000 households have seen substantial increases in their stormwater bills. We are hearing from those customers and have done some substantial work to inform them ahead of time and to inform the Portland Water Bureau customer service group for calls about this charge. So we have been preparing and in active dialogue with customers who are confused why their bills increased, and trying to contextualize what that means in the context of these recommendations. It is important to note that during outreach about these recommendations, this recommendation was considered a very positive change. People expressed the opinion that the new categories were fairer and would hopefully mean lower bills for houses that tend to be more affordable. While not always a direct correlation, smaller houses sometimes are correlated to cheaper as well. Next slide, please. The next recommendation is to really lower the cost to connect to our system. And also update our system development charges. But let's talk about the first point first. We have these connection charges, which were called line and branch and sanitary sewer conversion charges, which would often shock ratepayers with thousands of dollars in unexpected charges when they first connect to the system. These connection charges are a legacy of a 30-plus-year-old mid-county sewer project that were still in city code. This new system, effective July 1, retired those code requirements since development needs and circumstances have changed. So customers who need to connect to the system will still pay system development charges and still pay private plumbing costs, but the additional fees for line and branch and sanitary sewer conversion charges will no longer be billed. On the other side, for updating system development charges, the goal there is to simplify the application process and vary charges by housing size. So stormwater SDCs are now based on stormwater billable area increase only, as opposed to multiple variables as it used to be. And sanitary SDCs are now charged per drainage fixture unit for all customers. And similar to tiering charges for those single family customers in the stormwater rate, charging system development charges by size, so by stormwater billable area or number of bathrooms, which is DFUs or drainage fixture units, so how we measure the impact on our sanitary system, really means that smaller homes will pay less, typical homes will pay about the same that they have been, and larger homes will pay more. Next slide, please. The final recommendation we adopted is to expand our Clean River Awards program to more customers and make it simpler to register. This program provides a 35% discount on stormwater bills for customers that disconnect their downspouts or otherwise manage stormwater safely on their property. The proposed changes make it easier for customers to apply. It aligns our discount with current development codes, and it fixes any potential issues with compliance with our stormwater code while still maintaining discount eligibility. One important note on this discount is that the existing 33,000 participants will not see a change in their discount. They did see a slight change in how it looks in that very immediate bill right after the rate change, but the discount itself did not change. We are also, on the positive side, seeing an influx of new applications and a large spike in people visiting the website more and downloading application paperwork. Between July 1 and October 1 of 2024, there were 1,641 new Clean River Award registrations. During that same 3-month period in 2023, there were 346. So we had approximately 4 times the amount of people apply and register for Clean River Awards as we had the year prior. So we're seeing that the changes we recommended did help. Next slide, please. So to summarize, we've shifted our rates to reflect our investment in stormwater management over the last 19 years. The updates we made bring BES into better alignment with cost of service principles, and the updated rate structure is more in line with industry standards and the goals of our bureau. We also implemented some changes that have significant positive affordability impacts for a range of customers on the connection charge side. And now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Aaron Abrams, to talk about engagement and the public information effort that informed, supported, and got us moving forward.
Thanks, Anthony. All right. Let's see. Okay. I'd like to talk to you a bit about community engagement and the work that helped inform and refine the recommendations that went to council. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the public information and outreach effort to support the implementation work that's been underway and is continuing now. And then I'll turn things over to Sherry after this to talk more about the sort of technical implementation side of things. So in the summer of 2022, drafts of the rate study technical analysis and recommendations report were completed. And initial discussions around the communications needs during the rate study technical analysis phase focused on providing good public information, but we didn't anticipate needing to conduct significant community engagement. However, we recognized that the proposed changes were actually pretty substantial and the community voices needed to be included prior to bringing in any recommendations to council. So as a result, we developed a more substantive engagement process. That engagement plan had 2 goals. One was to inform ratepayers and community members about the change, and then engage stakeholders in gathering feedback and providing recommendations on how to update and modify those recommendations. So in order to accomplish those goals, we developed a plan with a range of outreach tactics. We began with a series of technical discussion sessions. We extended invitations to a very large list of interested parties, including neighborhood associations, environmental organizations, development community, business associations, large customers, environmental and racial justice organizations, many, many others, hundreds of people. The technical discussion sessions were meant for people with a background in rates and technical issues to get the fullest possible briefing on the potential changes and gather their feedback. We conducted 2 of those sessions. We also held a series of community presentations. These were more general and less technical. We presented to neighborhood and business groups, affordable housing groups, and many others. We also conducted some of that outreach in Spanish. Altogether, we held 15 community presentations. Along with these presentations, we hosted 15 office hour sessions where community members and customers could schedule time and discuss their individual questions and recommendations. Often people wanted to talk about their bill, and we can't talk about an individual's bill with other people, so we provided an opportunity for people to have to discuss their specific bill. Some of the outreach we conducted was particularly focused on highly impacted customers. We focused this additional outreach on drainage district customers and customers with overwater structures, 2 groups that would be more highly impacted by the recommendations. In addition to meeting with community members for direct conversations, we hosted a robust web presence. We included recordings on the webpage in English and Spanish, slideshows, an extensive FAQ. Staff also sent out periodic updates via the GovDelivery email subscription service to our email list that eventually grew to several hundred interested subscribers. All in all, we spoke to hundreds of community members from across the city, representing a really wide range of different types of customers. We gathered excellent feedback and used this feedback to update and inform recommendations that ultimately went to council. So what do we hear during the community engagement process? Some of these I'm sure you can guess. The feedback we heard can be broken down into two broad categories. First, feedback we heard from the general community. Second, feedback we heard from specifically Overwater customers. During the first half to 2/3 of the outreach effort, we received wide-ranging feedback. Some of it supportive of the changes we were proposing. Although, to be honest, the level of technical detail, people told us it was pretty daunting. It was daunting for me, and so it was difficult to gather feedback. Generally, though, people were supportive of changes that make the system fairer and that lower costs for low-income people in particular. They're very interested in expanding the Clean River Rewards discount program. In later phases of the outreach effort, we heard a substantial amount of feedback from overwater structures, particularly customers with floating homes. We spent a considerable amount of time engaging with them. This community was not supportive of being charged for those overwater structures, for the cost of managing stormwater for those overwater structures. When it came time to bring recommendations to council, the package of recommendations did not include charging overwater customers for the costs of managing their stormwater. This was at the direction of our commissioner at the time. Ultimately, we gathered excellent feedback from the broader community, and this feedback helped us refine the package of recommendations that went to council. For example, we updated compliance methods for the Clean River Rewards program so that customers would be better able to take advantage of the discounts. We did away with several expensive connection charges, and we agreed to phase in drainage district rates increases for the drainage districts over 3 years. We also attempted to build in a method for overwater structures to gain access to Clean River Rewards discounts, although this was ultimately made irrelevant. Incorporating community feedback is a key challenge in any engagement effort. People can feel very frustrated or even taken advantage of if their input is not incorporated into the final product in a meaningful way. And so I want to emphasize that we absolutely improved our recommendations based on what we heard from the community. And the package that was sent to council for a vote reflected that input. Once council passed the ordinance that instituted the changes to our rate methodology, our community outreach focus shifted to implementation. I'll talk briefly about that, the work we've done in that area. So the implementation phase of the rate update presented a communications and public information challenge. We're no longer seeking input, but we did need to prepare customers for the upcoming changes. We began by creating informational web pages outlining basic changes and a suite of customer-specific web pages that provide more detailed information relevant to each customer class. We supplemented these updates with email updates from our GovDelivery email newsletter system. All these web pages were translated into, I believe, 9 languages. In addition to the web information, we sent out a letter outlining the rate increases and rate changes to several highly impacted customer groups. We mailed letters to about 1,500 drainage district customers, all 12,000 of our commercial customers, and 25,000 large category single-family residential customers. These are the folks that would see the largest changes. We timed these letters to reach customers in advance of their new bills so they'd have time to prepare. And then the remainder of our customers in the standard and small single-family residential category, the majority of our customers, will see their bills, saw their bills stay roughly the same or even decrease. So they received a letter that was different. Communication staff also worked with Portland Water Bureau customer service and communication staff to develop a customer newsletter bill insert to explain the changes. And we supplemented community outreach by contacting directly our largest customers, as well as affordable housing providers, to invite them to meet with us one-on-one to learn about bill changes. We contacted about 40 of their largest customers and about 45 affordable housing providers. We met with 15 of the large customers, 5 affordable housing providers. Many of the remaining customers on that list declined meetings or just asked us to send them information, which we did. These outward-facing activities were occurring. While they were occurring, BES staff was working directly with Portland Water Bureau staff to prepare for what we knew would be an inevitable influx of calls once new bills started to hit mailboxes. BES communication staff worked with the project team and Portland Water Bureau staff to develop a robust FAQ for call center staff to use during calls. And in addition, Portland Water Bureau held a series of training sessions were supported by BES revenue program staff to train the call center team on the changes. So as of early November, all of our customers have received a bill that includes the new rate methodology. I believe that's true. Okay, if not all, most. We continue to receive questions from members of the public and work closely with Portland Water Bureau staff on a regular basis to improve and updates our scripts and FAQs for customer service staff. They tell us, customer service staff, the Portland Water Bureau tell us that they have seen some increase in call volumes, especially in September and October. But they tell us that it's been manageable so far. It's on the order of a few hundred calls per week, not thousands like we were, could have been the case if things didn't go well. We'll continue to refine and update our public-facing materials and to support Portland Water Bureau staff as we continue to implement. And so with that, I'll turn things over to Sherry to talk about the more technical side of the implementation process. All righty.
Thank you, Aaron. So with rate changes, and specifically those changes to our stormwater user charge and our stormwater discount, I'm going to also mention sewer connection charges. It drove necessary changes to our city code and administrative rule, our data that is the basis for billing, the billing system itself and other technology supports, and the business processes and service level agreements behind all of that work. And that work engaged several BES groups and also a number of staff within the water customer service team. And it even touched planning, permitting, and development insofar as SDC's changes. Next slide. So we started preparing for implementation with the go live date of July 1st in November of 2023. We started with creating work orders for 2 external vendors, one of which is our bill system, Kayenta billing system, and InfoSend, our vendor that helps us with the bill print itself. And these contracts are managed by Water Customer Service. Then shortly after that, in January of 2024, we began acquiring and validating the data that would be the basis of our stormwater billing in collecting data from both Metro and the county assessor. And we started updating our policy and the processes that support that policy in the spring of 2024 and began testing the billing system in both the spring and the summer of 2024. Aaron already mentioned a lot of training of customer service reps went into play in the spring of this year, and office hours were intended to serve some of our largest customers in explaining the changes and informing them of Clean River Reward changes. So this was all to prepare for rate changes being reflected on customer bills, again, beginning on July 1st of this year. Next slide. So I wanted to touch on what data acquisition and validation entailed. Again, we started that process in January and it continues. This is largely to address the changes to our stormwater billing methodology and stormwater discount and the components that changed where we had to source new data. The 2 components that now make up our stormwater charge consist of dwelling unit counts, and we again acquired that data from Metro, also some permitting info and other proprietary data. And the process involved us automating what we could in terms of populating those dwelling unit counts. That would be the basis of that component of the stormwater billing charge. But it also required some manual review, and it did result in a number of changes that both BES and water worked together on. Similarly, for single family residential customers that move from a single class average into 3 categories, small, medium, and large, we looked at Multnomah County tax assessor data to place our customers into one of those 3 categories, perform some statistical analysis on that. And out of our approximately 150,000 customers that fall into our single family residential categories, we looked at changing about 64,000 of those accounts as a result of that work. Anthony already mentioned about 17% of our total single family customers got moved to the large category. And then we had to look at creating a new sort of customer type, those that have both a commercial and residential component to their account, and called that mixed use accounts. There's several hundred of those accounts. We also had to create new bill codes for new customer types for the drainage district. We have about 1,500 drainage district customers. And then for overwater customers, there's about a couple of dozen of overwater customers that had unique bill codes. So that required reconfiguring the billing system to account for that, and making sure that the data has been validated or was validated before it got uploaded into the system. Next slide, please. And a lot of this work relied on ensuring that we had sufficient capability and capacity to do the work. So we had to enter into a number of service level agreements, both internal to BES, and then establish some new business processes between our water bureaus. We created a service level agreement with our own BES mapping team, and added some capacity in terms of bringing on some interns and also business systems analysts, and even a BTS resource to just ensure that we had the resources we needed to make this change. We also entered into an agreement with our engineering folks in BES so that we could be ready for an influx of our stormwater discount applications, Clean River Rewards. We wanted to make sure we had enough capacity to perform either desk or field audits when new registrations came in. And then we established new business processes with the water customer service team to be clear on roles and responsibilities, and establishing new stormwater services, including populating those new components that are the basis of stormwater billing, and also resolving any disputes that might arise when customers call in to inquire about their bill. Next slide. In terms of data and system validation and testing, which occurred in the spring and then again in June of 2024, we wanted to make sure that those new bill codes we established for those new customer types, the drainage district and overwater customers, were working properly. So we wanted to make sure that the methodology, that the rate study recommendations came forward with were actually functioning in the billing system itself. We also wanted to make sure that our 33,000 existing participants in our stormwater discount program were going to see a seamless transition from the way that they previously saw their discount displayed on the bill to the new way that we're going to display that discount. Again, the dollar amount of that discount did not change, but the way it was displayed did. So there was a lot of communication behind that, as well as just testing it so it appeared as we hoped it would on the new bill. And then the other thing that we did in terms of data and system validation was looking at the various utility account attributes and ensuring that when we changed a couple of components that everything else lined up so that, again, people were appropriately billed, and we were able to collect on the charges. If there was any misalignment, it would create billing errors. So we spent a lot of time working with water to identify those issues and make some corrections to that before we went live. Okay, next slide. So once we went live, the work did not end for us. We had a number of things to continue focusing on. And from now until the end of the fiscal year, we're going to look at our long-term plan for stormwater data with maintenance in mind, putting new policy, process, and agreements into action, and continuing to deliver very high quality customer service. And our objective here is that we have timely resolution and adjustment to any sort of billing issues that may arise. We want to be very consistent and transparent in how we apply those resolutions and make those adjustments. And ultimately, we're hoping to minimize the errors and increase customers' understanding of the new way that we are doing billing. Next slide. As was mentioned, we made some changes to our definition of stormwater billable area. With this broader definition, we are looking at exploring other data sources, and to the extent that we're able to, automating data validation, or just ensuring that the data is as accurate as data is available. So what that means for single family residential customers is we're going to explore Ecopia. We're currently doing a pilot project with Ecopia, Canadian-based outfit that uses AI to generate surface classification and associate that with our billing data. And what that means is just looking at the type of surface, whether it's grass or gravel, and being able to define and label that in an automated fashion using AI. And what we hope to do is then use that data to upload into the billing system for our single family residential individual accounts. But again, this exploration into this new data source is just a pilot project now. And we're going to look at other options for data sources as well as we continue to think about the long-term plan for maintenance. For a commercial and multifamily residential for commercial and multifamily residential customers, we still largely digitize aerial photography. What that means is draw a shape around what is stormwater billable area and assign then the component that we use for the basis of stormwater billing, formerly known as impervious area. But again, our definition of SBA has expanded. So it continues to be a largely manual process, but we are trying to find ways to increase our efficiency, and we'll continue to receive any customer-driven requests for reviews, but we are moving towards a more city-driven process to ensure accuracy of our stormwater billing of these commercial and multifamily residential properties. Next slide, please. Oh, bear with me.
And Sherry, this is Robin. Just wanted to give you a reminder. We have about 5 minutes left of the meeting. If there's any key information you want to give us.
Okay, I have 2 last slides. Just wanted to note that we do have rule revisions that we'll need to make, and the purpose of these rule revisions, which will require director signature after a public engagement process, is just to clarify nuanced scenarios. It's again for transparency and consistency. We'll continue to work very closely with water customer service on business process enhancements, and we'll soon revisit those service level agreements I mentioned previously. And the good news is, though, that we've defined a new business process and communication channel between our 2 water bureaus and have fully trained staff and created customer self-serve tools to reduce the administrative burden on both revenue programs and water customer service for a lot of the stormwater billable area reviews that are coming in. And Clean River Rewards is still automated or available online for single family residential customers, but it still requires some auditing for the commercial side. As previously mentioned, Clean River Rewards has seen an influx of registrations since we went live. Next slide. So then this is my last slide. I just wanted to share customer response to date regarding the transition and the new way of billing. We've received some 50 requests for our single family residential customers to have their stormwater billable area reviewed. Ultimately, 35 resulted in no change. 8 customers saw a decrease in the category in which they were placed, or a decrease in their stormwater bill as a result of that review. For Clean River Rewards, Anthony already mentioned some numbers. Long story short, we've seen a 5-fold increase in registrations for the first 4 months of implementation. A large amount of commercial applications came in as a result of those office hours we held. As far as administrative reviews, we've only received 1 to date, and we have yet to schedule that administrative review. So BES continues to hear appeals that are specific to stormwater billing or Clean River Rewards. And one thing of note on the sewer conversion charge piece, part of the transition from once having a line and branch charge and sewer conversion charge to no longer, is that we did issue refunds to a number of customers, 80 in total, that had prepaid for a sewer service connection charge and did not have sewer service immediately available to them. So those were the customers eligible for a refund in terms of paying for a service that they could not access at that point in time. So that is my summary of implementation, and I'm going to kick it back to Farshad for closing remarks.
Thanks, Sherry and Aaron and Anthony. I'm actually gonna, for the sake of time, skip these final couple of slides. So I do believe Amy provided you a read ahead of the PowerPoint deck. So you have the content in front of you. And we're happy to answer any questions offline or come back to conclude the presentation or have a discussion. We are at your disposal, but I do want to just take this moment to share my deep appreciation and gratitude for Anthony, Aaron, and Sherry for leading this effort over multiple years and through the complexities of interbureau relationships and stakeholder management and really challenging data analysis and policy setting. This has been a very long and windy road, and it was managed expertly by the BES team and in partnership with our friends in the Water Bureau. So thank you. And again, if there are any follow-up questions, we're happy to answer them behind the scenes or come back to a future meeting.
All right, thank you all for that presentation. I know pub members will have some follow-ups to send you, as we always do. And then with that, Amy, are there any outgoing remarks for the upcoming meetings?
We did not have agenda set for the upcoming meeting, so that we can talk about following this meeting and identify based on follow-up questions that folks may have, whether to schedule additional time. You should have received in my read ahead the budget guidance that was received, because I think that's where bureaus are focused currently, and trying to get to the point where there's information to bring to pub and engage with pub on. So I'm not sure the timeline for that, but we'll touch base with the bureaus regarding when the right time and right engagement is with pub, whether it's the subsequent meeting or the December meetings. So we'll coordinate that over the next week or so that we can finalize an agenda. The next meeting is only a couple of weeks away, so there's not that much time between the two, but it is on the 21st, just before the holiday week. So we will work on those pieces and we'll connect with the board electronically. Just a reminder in between, if you have questions that are percolating now, email me, call me, whatever, to try to get that information as quickly as possible, because then that will help inform how much time or whether to dedicate some time at the subsequent meeting to revisit this topic and how to balance it with the other priorities that you have coming up. Thank you, Farshad and the full team, for your flexibility today and taking the time to get through those materials. And I think that's it from my end. The rest we can connect electronically.
And just to finish off, want to say thank you, and I appreciate all of the pub members that come in here every other week and do the work of the community. So just want to value you while you're here as well. And with that,
absolutely.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.